appropriate supervision of employees. And what it's actually talking about is that a principal licensee, so the main licensee in charge of a business, must prepare and maintain written procedures outlining the respective roles and responsibilities of licensees and certificate holders in relation to the preparation and signing of agency agreements, of franchise agreements, and conjunction agreements. Now, we've been talking about this for probably the last couple of years about what a Class 1, a Class 2, and an assistant agent can actually do. But what it's saying here is that for the principal licensee needs to be having written procedures on how this is actually going to happen within your organisation. So if an assistant agent's going out there and doing the inspection of a property, this doesn't matter whether it's sales or property management at this point. If you're going out there and doing the inspection of the property, filling in the agency agreement, bringing it back to the agency for a Class 1 or a Class 2 license to sign off on it, what are your internal processes? Now, I've spoken to lots of agencies, and they're nominating a specific person who obviously has a really good understanding of agency agreements and what is right and what is not right, to be the only person within their agency. Whilst the legislation states that any licensed person, Class 1 or Class 2, can sign off on it, you as an agency need to know who that is and nominate that within your agency. So it obviously needs to match the criteria. So you can't have another assistant agent signing off on it, even if they are the person in the agency that knows the most about agency agreements. And sometimes they are. It needs to be licensed. So it needs to fit what happens in your agency, but also needs to fit the class of license or assistant agent certificate of registration classification that the person has and what they're allowed to do under that. So in addition to that, in terms of supervision of employees, a licensee in charge is responsible for actually verifying that all people within there that work within that agency have completed all of their CPD requirements. Okay, and we all know, and I've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and we still get asked questions, what are the requirements? Remember, really simply, I'm going to do this one. Class 1, Class 2, 6 hours this year, changes next year. 3 hours are compulsory topics, 3 hours are electives. That's for Class 1 and Class 2 licenses. If you're an assistant agent, that is, you hold a certificate of registration, you need to finish 3 units towards your license. Full stop. No arguments on that one. Off we go. The licensee in charge needs to supervise that that's happening. The licensee in charge needs to start working on the experience logbook, particularly for those assistant agents who are moving at some time in the next, anything between now and the next 4 years, in getting their license. And when they do that, they need to submit with their certificate for qualification, they need to submit their experience logbook. And that's up to the licensee in charge and the person, because it's a two-way thing here, to actually make sure that that's signed off. So it actually means that, if an assistant agent or a Class 2 agent leaves the employment of a particular agency, that the licensee in charge that's actually been supervising them is responsible for completing that experience logbook. So the supervision guidelines are saying, as a licensee in charge, you just can't say, nah, not doing it. You can fill it in. You can quite happily, not tick all of them. You tick off and sign against exactly what that person has shown that they're competent in, and that may well not be enough. They have to go and get that experience elsewhere, and it's done for the period of time that they were working for that licensee in charge. And on the same foot, it's that assistant agent's responsibility, or the Class 2 agent, if they're trying to work towards a Class 1 licence, to gain that sign-off and prove to the licensee in charge that they do have, or they have gained those competencies in terms of their work experience skills. So, it's a two-way street there. Whilst the supervision guidelines are very clearly about what a licensee in charge and the principal licensees need to apply to a business, that just as responsible for all employees within a business to comply with those and to comply with the requirements under the supervision guidelines that the licensee in charge is asking for the employees to do. So it's not enough to sit back and go, yeah, that's the problem for the licensee in charge. Yeah, it is, but it's also everybody else's problem to actually make sure that they're doing the right thing as well.